In 1989, an Apple employee sketched a small, beautiful device in a notebook. A phone, a computer, something you'd carry everywhere and never want to put down. That sketch became a real product, sold in stores. 5 years before anyone had heard the word smartphone. The company that built it employed the people who would later create the iPod, the iPhone, and Nest. And by the time you finish this video, you'll understand exactly why almost nobody remembers its name, and why the technology press once called it the most important dead company Silicon Valley ever produced. This is the story of General Magic. The story starts with Mark Porret, an Apple employee who had previously worked at the Aspen Institute before co-founding a video conferencing company that Apple eventually acquired. In 1989, Porret became convinced that the next era of computing wouldn't be about bigger desktop machines. It would be about small, personal, connected devices. He wrote up his vision and pitched it directly to Apple's CEO at the time, John Sculley. Sculley was won over almost immediately. So were two of Apple's most respected engineers, Andy Hertzfeld and Bill Atkinson, both original members of the team that built the first Macintosh. Porret convinced all of them to leave secure positions at Apple to build something that didn't exist yet. In May of 1990, the project internally known as Paradigm was spun out of Apple entirely, becoming an independent company called General Magic. Apple took a minority ownership stake, and Sculley personally joined the new company's board. What General Magic assembled next was, in hindsight, one of the most talent-dense teams in the history of consumer technology. Alongside Porret, Hertzfeld, and Atkinson came designer Susan Kare, marketing executive Joanna Hoffman, and two employees who would go on to define the next 3 decades of consumer tech on their own. Tony Fadell, who later helped create the iPod and iPhone before founding Nest, and Megan Smith, who later became Chief Technology Officer of the United States under the Obama administration. For years, General Magic operated in near-total secrecy. The company was so guarded about what it was building that rumors spread across Silicon Valley about what was actually happening behind its doors, which only made the most talented engineers in the region more desperate to work there. Getting an interview at General Magic was reportedly nearly impossible without a personal connection. And the office culture, captured extensively on home video by the team itself, showed a group that behaved less like employees and more like a movement convinced it was making history in real time. What they were building was genuinely ahead of its time. A touchscreen handheld device called a personal intelligent communicator, running a custom operating system called Magic Cap, with an underlying communications language called Telescript designed to let small software programs, what General Magic called software agents, travel across networks on a user's behalf to complete tasks automatically. In 1990, this was closer to science fiction than product design. Telescript, in particular, represented a genuinely novel idea for its time. Instead of a device simply sending and receiving data, small autonomous pieces of code could be dispatched onto a network, make decisions on their own, negotiate with other software agents, and return with a completed task, booking a reservation, comparing prices, or retrieving information, without a human needing to stay connected the entire time. General Magic's engineers were essentially designing a primitive form of autonomous software agents at a time when most of the world had never used a web browser, because the web browser hadn't been invented yet. Then in 1993, everything changed. Apple, General Magic's own primary backer, and the company that owned a stake in its success, launched a competing handheld device of its own. The Newton, General Magic's team learned about it essentially the same way the public did. Andy Hertzfeld later described the moment as a genuine betrayal, given how closely General Magic had considered Apple a partner up to that point. Suddenly under pressure from a rival product backed by their own investor, General Magic rushed to finish and ship what they had. In September of 1994, in partnership with Sony, Motorola, and AT&T, General Magic released its first commercial product, The Sony Magic Link. The device weighed about 1.5 pounds and cost $800, roughly $15–60 adjusted for inflation. It had a touchscreen, downloadable applications, and animated emoji-like characters years before that concept had any name at all. Tony Fadell reportedly believed it would be revolutionary, a real computer in your pocket everywhere you went. It wasn't. The Magic Link was slow. Its network connectivity was unreliable and expensive by the standards of ordinary consumers. And the entire concept it was trying to explain, an intelligent communicator that used autonomous software agents to handle tasks for you, was simply too abstract for most people to understand in 1994. Years before mainstream internet access, let alone mobile data, existed in any usable form. Sales were poor. Follow-up devices from partners like Motorola and Sony failed to gain traction either. General Magic never recovered commercially, and after years of dwindling relevance, the company was formally dissolved in September of 2002. Here's the detail that makes this story more than just another failed startup. Almost everything General Magic tried to build eventually became real. Just under different names, built by different companies. Once the surrounding technology finally caught up, cellular data networks matured, touchscreens became cheap and reliable. Battery technology improved by orders of magnitude. And the people who had built Magic Cap and Telescript scattered across the industry and rebuilt pieces of the same vision inside companies that actually had the infrastructure to support it. Tony Fadell went on to lead the team that created the iPod at Apple, and later the iPhone's hardware development before founding Nest, the smart thermostat company that Google acquired for $3.2 billion. Megan Smith went on to lead new business development at Google before being appointed the third chief technology officer of the United States. Andy Hertzfeld and other General Magic alumni went on to found or shape products at companies including eBay, Web TV, and Twitter's early infrastructure. In an industry that loves to talk about founders and unicorns, General Magic quietly produced more consequential technologists per employee than almost any single company of its era, despite the company itself being remembered, if at all, as a failure. The core idea behind Telescript, small pieces of software autonomously completing tasks on a user's behalf across a network, is functionally a rough sketch of what today gets marketed as an AI agent. 3 decades before large language models made that concept commercially viable. A 2019 documentary, simply titled General Magic, pieced this story together using extensive archival footage the company itself had filmed during its early years, apparently convinced even then that it was making history. In one of the film's most quoted lines, Mark Porat's original 1990 pitch to Scully described the device he imagined as an object of genuine desire, something people would find beautiful, and would feel they couldn't live without. It's a near-perfect description of the smartphone industry that exists today. Written 3 years before the word smartphone was coined, and 5 years before General Magic's own product ever reached a store shelf. General Magic didn't fail because the idea was wrong. It failed because the idea arrived before the rest of the world had built the infrastructure required to support it, the networks, the batteries, the touchscreens, the cultural habit of carrying a computer everywhere. Every one of those pieces eventually got built by someone else, often by the very engineers General Magic had trained, and then unavoidably lost. That's the pattern this channel exists to explore. Not just what failed and not just what succeeded, but the exact moment in between, where an idea was correct. The company built to deliver it wasn't ready to survive that long, and the line, for that company specifically, simply ended. End of line, technology that almost changed everything. Subscribe because the next line ends soon.